Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life.
Hats.
Brendo. Why did we do it that way round? You just started it because you're the guy with the button.
No, you know what? Because we started, and for whatever reason, I was the intro guy. So we talked about.
Oh, because I did the outro, which was painful. You ever listen to that back?
Hey guys.
Hey guys, it's me again. Hi.
Thanks for listening.
That was so bad.
No, it just worked out that way, I think. And then I don't
just
know.
kind of stuck.
Anyway, what's going on? You like my jammy jams?
Yeah, you're hearing your jammies.
Yeah. G-bangers. You like my G-banger?
Is that what that's called?
Yeah, no.
I don't think so. No, I'm all right, man. I don't think there's anything hugely new. The house you've just asked me about the house. The house completed, the money's in the bank, and some of it will definitely go into Bitcoin. So
hang on. Oh no, we have talked about that.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good. So it's finally done because you've been laboring over that the last little while.
Yeah, I have. And I just came into your house this evening, and there are eight chairs that you've sold. Yeah. So you're really becoming a Bitcoiner now. You've sold 8 chairs today.
Well, I told my wife as soon as she goes, I'm trying to get rid of everything because I don't want to call her a hoarder, but she's a hoarder.
I don't know what you're going to say there.
A hoarder.
Okay. Okay, cool. You're just emptying the place while she's gone.
Yeah, as much as I can. Yeah.
Proper Bitcoiner losing the chairs. Anyway. We have a guest.
We do. You should introduce him because I met him, I think, at Murrah. And we had a brief chat, but you two have actually had more of a.
We had a good chat at Bitcoin Alive. I was kind enough to speak to my uncle for quite a while as well.
Yep.
But also we actually met at the Murrah. Was it just last year? I think it maybe was. So
yeah.
So we have Paul. Paul, remind us what your Twitter handle is, just off the top.
At Paul by BTC.
Paul by BTC. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, that's all right. That's all right. I was just going to spell it, but that's okay. You got it.
It'll be down below, but just so I remember. And so we came from I think maybe from day one of Marundi, and came into the pub.
Yeah.
I got a beer. I sat at a table beside three strangers that happened to be Paul, his wife, and his daughter.
Yeah.
And just in typical Bitcoin fashion, we sort of sat down and spoke for half an hour, 45 minutes, uninterrupted. We never met before. Why did that happen, Paul?
Why did that happen? Just the universe, I suppose. It was meant to happen. We just sat down and started talking as Bitcoiners do, and I suppose we touched on the subject of families and other different things, and it just led from there.
It was good. It was just, I don't know about you, but I've never been a guy who just felt really comfortable just going into any sort of social setting, sitting down. Like let's you go to a wedding, right?
And
you just get put on a table with, there might be you and a partner, but you get put on a table with these 6 other strangers you never met, and you sort of kind of awkwardly making conversation. Personally, I don't like the silence, so I'm always like talking over the top of the silence, but I don't feel comfortable. Whereas in a Bitcoin setting, I kind of feel more comfortable, and I don't know why that is.
Do you know what I think? I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely that's that.
Nah, I think you're a more social creature possibly than me. Like, yeah, I know, I do. I think you're actually really quite good in social situations. Whether you're kind of that forced extrovert, introvert kind of guy, but and the fact that you can fucking talk an ear off, so maybe that could help.
And I'm allowed to talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, but definitely, Bitcoin. There's an immediate sort of starting line that you're at with
everybody's there. They've got some level of interest.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be helpful if you gave us a bit of a background story and as how you've come across Bitcoin, Paul, and how it fits in with your life as you live it just now.
Great question. How did I come across it? I suppose what brought us as a family across it was we obviously went through an interesting time during lockdowns a couple of years ago, and we had 2 very successful businesses, and then one day because of the lockdowns, we our businesses were shut down, and so it sort of changed. It turned our world upside down, where we had worked hard to have what we had, and then you don't expect to go through a pandemic. I always planned for a recession within our businesses because I went through that recession we so-called had to have, where interest rates went up to 18%. And you'll learn a lot through surviving through that. And in the business world, you don't plan for, a pandemic. So when the government turned around and decided that, certainly here in Australia, that they're going to spend $400 billion in our job seeker, job keeper component, it really, I had so many questions, because I knew on the other side of that, when you start printing so much money, that once we got through those lockdowns and on the other side of COVID, that we would be in a high inflation environment, because you just can't print that much money and then close the economy down. So I had all these questions, went down the rabbit hole, and I'm still in that rabbit hole. But during that whole time, I wanted to understand what was money and what was going to happen to the economy and how that would affect us as a business. We have a unique process, because we basically work on a 200-year plan. And why we work on a 200-year plan is we want to make sure that just not through our lifetime or our daughter's lifetime, but potentially the lifetime of our daughters' children's children, possibly, to make sure that what we've created can flow on for a long, long time. Most people look at something for just through their lifetime and they retire and then just pass it down or do whatever. We wanted to take that further. So I went down the rabbit hole, and I couldn't find the answers that I was looking for until my amazing wife turned around and said, I think you need to listen to these podcasts. So going back a little bit, I went down, I looked at Bitcoin twice prior to that, and twice I dismissed it because we needed to put our money into our businesses and other things, and it didn't really make sense to me. But when I started listening to these podcasts, which was on Bitcoin, but it was more about money and what is money, then I started to understand what Bitcoin was, and it were all the answers that I was looking for, because I had to look at things completely different. And Bitcoin gave me all the answers that I was looking for, because as we know, there's so many different rabbit holes. You learn about inflation, the economy, you look at all these different things, but then you get to understand that what politicians and governments are doing all around the world, living in this fiat money system. It's all rigged against you, because everything can be manipulated to suit them, but it affects us, being, whether it's your business or just everyday living life person. So then we had to try to find a way of saying, well, understand Bitcoin more, and then basically saying, well, how can we secure our future, financial future for the family, but also our businesses when we get on the other side? And now we're on the other side and learning what we've learned. We've now put Bitcoin on our balance sheet of both businesses to secure them. Pixel, my daughter, also has her own Bitcoin account, and we obviously have it as well too. So right now we're playing in both systems, the Bitcoin system and the fiat system, and therefore we can continue to do what we do, but we're also trying to protect ourselves to make sure that whatever the government does or the politicians do and whatever they do, we're trying to limit their poor decisions that they make, to make sure that, one is we can keep what we've got, but two is we can also make sure it's there for the future as well too.
So just a question, right? So as obviously a business owner, going down the rabbit hole, what was it like with the I guess the juxtaposition of benefiting from something like a job seeker or job keeper or whatever the stimulus was that they were sort of printing and handing out, whereas also seeing what that or the impact that would have on the wider economy. Does that make sense? Because you would have benefited from that in some way, surely. So when COVID happened, no.
Yeah. No, look, I thought it was. I understand why the government did it. The problem is that from a business perspective, and this is very different to other, let's just say our staff or other people that are employed. So from a business perspective, it was quite unique because we were in Melbourne and we had the hardest lockdowns than anywhere else in the world. And the challenge is for a business, you're not only responsible and looking after your staff, which is your number one, but two is you don't want to go broke and everything else. So most businesses have a lot of overheads, enormous amount of overheads. So a lot of people rent the space that they have. They might have leases. They might have a loan for their business as well too. And then on top of that, they most probably got a loan on their primary place of residence. So with the lockdowns, JobKeeper and Job Seeker was really good for most of the people and staff, and I get that. But for the business though, we got some grants. And those grants certainly helped a little bit, but most of the grants didn't even cover our power bills. So this is, I suppose, getting a bit deep. So when you have politicians getting up there and saying, we're here to support you and everything else, and we're here to support businesses and so forth, that's their belief and that's fine. But the way I explained it to people was, that in their terms was, imagine if the government saw that there was a person, a homeless person or just a person starving in the street, and they went up to them and they said, look, we're going to help you and support you and everything else. And what they do is they end up giving you a grain of rice. And that's what it was like, because we wanted to support our staff and everything else, and which we did. And in the end, what happened was we had a rainy day account. We burnt through that rainy day account, and that was close to $100 we burnt through just to survive. And that's why I suppose especially in Melbourne, so many businesses went under and still are going under today. Especially in the hospitality industry and everything else. It was just absolutely horrific. So I suppose it gets back to that certainly when you go down the Bitcoin rabbit holes and everything else, you realize that, there's politicians don't always tell you the truth. Politicians will and even other people, whether it's the Reserve Bank or any of these organizations, they tend to, what's the right word to say? They tend to say what they think people want to hear, where in fact it's not really what's factual on the ground. And we can tell that today, even when they report inflation, or they, CPI and all of those things. Even over in America now, they turn around and say, "Oh no, the banking system is safe and it's secure," where in fact we know it's not. So, does that answer the question? I suppose.
Yeah, I think it does. What am I trying to say? Yes, that is true that they don't tell the truth. That's absolutely true. But by telling the truth, we're in a position now that by telling the truth, you actually bring on the panic quicker. So their argument could well be, we're just trying to stop really negative things from happening. I'm not just devil's advocate stuff here. I'm not
Mm.
sort of trying to support a politician, but by telling the truth,
No,
they kind of can't.
Yeah.
Like if you take a Jay Powell right now, he is in a disaster of a place. He's got two options and they're both awful, and he's trying to just try not to hit off each side of each option, and that's probably true of every central bank around the world to a degree. So, the way they might look at it is, well, I've got these two mandates of kind of low unemployment and 2% inflation, and I'm trying to tread this line, and they may feel like they're doing a good job. Do you feel like it's incompetence, or are they genuinely trying to do a good job, or are they, what is that?
Look, I think I don't disagree. I think that sometimes when you tell the truth, it's obviously going to make the situation a lot worse. And I think you're absolutely right. I suppose that what would be best would be, I suppose, to manage the situation correctly. We put enormous amount of trust in the people in a position of authority, power. We believe that we elect people to do the right thing by the people of the country, by the state, and everything else. And you would hope that that happens. I think that's a dream world today. I think that that's what we would love. I think the world's in a bad place because I think people that are in power are so disconnected to the real world. And I think that what we have to do is we have to be responsible for ourselves and take full responsibility for our lives based on that no one else is going to help you. And if you do that, therefore, you've always got a safety net. And if the government does the right thing and the people in the right places continue to do that, well, then that's fantastic. But if they don't, then we should be responsible for our own lives, our own how we feel, create our own security, our own whatever it is, and just take full responsibility for that. And therefore, if the powers to be do silly things or get us into certain situations, we can limit that risk on us. And that's why, we've moved to understanding more about how the economy works, how money works, and making sure that we create that security for our family.
Going back to something you said before, you two-part question, if you don't mind. So you said you had this sort of 200-year thought process in terms of running a business. The first part of the question is, was that all prior to Bitcoin? Is this an ethos that you've been following for a long time? And the second part of my question is, so you sort of had these two touch points of Bitcoin, and then your wife suggested you should maybe have a look more closely again. Was it because it was coming from your wife, because of being a person of trust, or was it that the people that you suggested you should listen to were particularly struck a note with you? So why did you have that ethos, and why did you finally get to properly start looking at Bitcoin? And are those two do those two things combine?
No, they don't. So the 200-year plan came most probably about 5 to 6 years ago. So I've always looked at planning for the future, and so I always look 2 to 5 years out, 10, 20, 30, 40 years thereabouts, and I've learned that from most probably 25, 30 years ago. And but I was listening to a podcast, and it was actually Greg Norman was talking. So it's most probably about 5 years or so ago, and because he's a great businessman, and he talked about his business and that they worked on a 200-year plan. And I thought that was really intriguing and interesting. So I took that and I've gone, okay, so if we turn around and adopted that concept, what would change in our life? And one of the businesses that we've got is on a rural property down on the Mornington Peninsula, and it's 12 acres, and it's a great successful business, and everything else is fantastic. But when I applied that 200-year plan and forced me to look out into the future, then what we worked out was that that business one day won't be there, because if because it's on a green wedge. So if they change the planning based on urban and people moving down to the Mornington Peninsula, if they change it from green wedge to residential, then all that land next to us would certainly turn into residential properties. And because we've got a business that does produce a bit of noise, then we would get swallowed up by that, and then we wouldn't have that business. So we've got a great business, and all of a sudden we wake up one day, urban spread comes along, and bang, it's gone. So then what we did was we then put a plan together to say that we need to look at starting up another business that's in a different area that to protect our future. So that changed our mindset completely. So we've always taken that 200-year plan and asked those questions out into the future to see if there's anything we're missing that we can do now that can protect our future way past our lifetime. So when you have that mindset, you look at everything in that way. And so then when Bitcoin came along, we thought, wow, this is perfect, because this is just 200 years. This is way beyond 200 years. So it certainly changed our thinking and our life and some of the decisions that we've made up until today. And it's even changing our thought process, even when we talk about estate planning and all these other type of things, especially when you sit down and think about the discussions that happen around money, finances, Bitcoin, estate planning, and all those other things. So that was on the 200-year plan side of things. I can't think of the other part. Oh, that's what it was. Okay,
it was your third touch point. The wife, and who were you listening to?
Yeah. So that was forced. That was forced upon us, because I don't think it would have happened unless it was when we got told about the amount of money that the government was going to start spending and printing. And so I've always used my subconscious mind to basically ask good questions, and knowing that we'd be able to find the answers. So with that, and I knew that on the other side of those lockdowns, when we come out of it, that we're going to have an issue with the economy and money and everything else. So that forced that to try to find those answers. And so when Corey was listening to some other podcasts, she listened to this series, and they were talking about money. And with talking about money, it also led into Bitcoin and everything else. So because I value, if Corey asked me to go down a rabbit hole, there's a good reason for it. And I respect that and value that enormously. So, and vice versa, if I said to Corey that, look, I really need you to look at this and give me your view and opinion on it, then she would go off and away she goes. So I did the same thing. I listened to it, and it blew my mind how it just answered all the questions that I needed to know about money and the effect of money and how it all works and everything else. And from there, I was hooked.
Are we talking about Sailor series, or what was it that you listened to?
No, this was something that Alex Vetsky put out. So he did that. He did a whole series. I think it was about up to 11 episodes he did with Pete Evans. So I got up to, I think, about the 5th episode, and then from there I then went on to other podcasts, and then to, you know, Breed Love and everywhere else.
Yeah, cool.
And so you were in I was going to say fortunate position. That's absolutely the wrong words. You had put yourself into this position where your business could survive the problems of lockdown, even if it was, I'm sure, difficult, right? A lot of people probably weren't in that position. Was that, if you don't mind talking about it, was that would have to have been a liquid asset, like cash somewhere? And so is that what you've taken? Have you taken that same philosophy of, you know, having this rainy day fund, and rainy day fund has just become Bitcoin on the balance sheet and it becomes rainy day fund? Or what's that thought process?
So
and obviously,
question.
please avoid the parts of it you don't want to talk about.
No, I'm trying to be a bit careful because I don't. No, okay. So the Bitcoin on the balance sheet is just creating another safety net for the future.
Yeah.
We now in the 200-year plan, we know that we're going to get other recessions that are going to come along, and we know there's a potential to have pandemics now in the future if we're working on a 200-year plan. So that needs to be cash in the bank for the time being, but it also needs to be Bitcoin as well too. So we need to hedge our bets to make sure that you know, we can survive, but also the businesses survive for the future and forever. So to do that, we need to have both. We also need to pay debt down as well too, and make sure that we don't extend ourselves any further than what we have to make sure that we as business owners don't overextend ourselves, because we've got to learn from the lessons that have happened recently. And if we do that, therefore we can protect ourselves. We now have seen that, like people are experiencing now, that interest rates can go up quite quick and have a devastating effect not only on people, but businesses and livelihoods and everything. So we have to learn how to manage money better to make sure that, you know, we can get through these things instead of homelessness and heartbreak and, you know, stress and everything else, mental health and all those things.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because as a this managing from here to there, this is a big thing of mine just now. It's, yes, I'm as bullish as the next guy, probably more bullish than the next guy on Bitcoin, but we need to get from here to there. And as a business owner operator, you still have to walk that line between fiat and Bitcoin in a way that's sensible, because if we are right about Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin you need is not all that much. So you just need to, you need to run your business successfully as well as you can and put whatever you feel comfortable with into Bitcoin, and that will become hopefully, and I assume, a big nest egg in the future. But you still need to operate in the present, and I think a lot of people need to realize that.
Financial advice from Hats.
Yeah. The thing is, I think what we have to do is we have to go back to basics, and we have to have a plan, and everyone should have a plan, and everyone's circumstances are different. For me, what we need to do right now is we should be spending less than what we bring into money into our life. So spend less than what we earn. Then what we need to do is to get rid of as much debt as possible in doing that, but still surviving. But then what we need to try to do is we need to be able to build safety nets for our family, for our business, for our life, for whatever you want. And the more safety nets that you create, whether it's cash, whether it's paying off your debts, whether it's living within your means, whether it's Bitcoin or gold, silver or shares or whatever it is, I think the more safety nets you can create, then when you do have a bad day or a bad time or a recession or another pandemic or I don't know, then you're going to be able to get through those times. But if you don't create a safety net, then it's going to be so much harder and it's going to be a heartbreak. We can also look at our food supply. Where's our food supply going to come from in the future? And all these other different things. I think we've got to take that moment to say, well, what's our family plan? Not just now, and now might be survival, but once we get through that, then what's our plan going to be? If I go back, we went through the recession that we so-called had to have, but I made sure that from that point onwards, I didn't want to be in that position ever again, to have to try to fight against 18% interest on a mortgage. So I've always lived frugal from that point onwards, and always asked that question about money and said, well, do I really need this? And if I don't, well, then I don't. If I do want something like a lounge suite or whatever, go to Marketplace, spend $50, $100 instead of whatever it is. If you just need a lounge suite, then whatever. So we've done that for, last 20 odd years or more. And we got through, we survived lockdowns and everything else. But just because we survived that, I don't know what the future is going to bring. So we want to make sure that we create as many safety nets as we can. And, it gives you more choices in life, doesn't it? If you do that. If you don't, then you've got less choices.
So, and I'll slightly sort of a bit of a different tack. So we mentioned before, we met at Marundi at the Bitcoin Bush Bash. At that Bush Bash, I was delighted to see there was a few kids this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andy had his kids, wives, families, kids, all that. You brought your daughter, and you told me a incredible story about something that she did. Are you happy to talk about that? And if
sure.
so,
yep,
that
absolutely.
would be awesome.
So Pixel, we've always taught Pixel from a very young age to understand what money is and how to save, and then, but not only just that, but also to encourage Pixel to understand about contribution and giving and saving and creating something for a rainy day. So as a parent, you go through all of that, but you never really know how much they're taking in. And, in the early days when I had to go to meetings or business meetings or something like that, I'd take Pixel with me because we were running a business and everything like that. But I always wanted to include Pixel in everything that we do, so that Pixel could take that on board and learn from that. So obviously going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and everything else, she keeps hearing me talk about it and whatnot. So what we decided to do as parents is we always wanted to be the example for her. And we always looked at our life to say, well, if we want our daughter to be this type of person in life, then we need to be that example and behave that way and do things in that manner. So we obviously played podcasts, and Pixel will hear things and whatnot. And then obviously I started going to the Bitcoin meetups, and at times I would take Pixel along as well too. But when the Bush Bash come along, then that was a non-negotiable. And Pixel understood that. So my thing was that what we would do is we did the first Bush Bash in Yeppoon. And so Pixel loves drawing. If Pixel could draw digitally or a scrapbook or whatever, she'd do it 20 hours a day if she could. She just loves doing it. So what I did when we went to the first Bush Bash, I said to Pixel that you just need to be in the room. And we knew this from years ago, that if you put kids in the room, they will absorb what they need to absorb. And we just knew that. So I just said, you can bring a notebook, you can bring your pencils, you can draw, no problems, but you just can't have ear pods in. I want you to hear what's going on in the environment. So we did that, and Pixel was all good and fine, no problems. And so on the first day at the Bush Bash, I said to her, how about if you did a Bitcoin drawing for me? And she sort of looked at me as if to say, I don't think so. So I turned around and said, how about I commission a piece of artwork for you to do it? And so ears pricked up a little bit. And I said, so what would you charge for me to commission a piece of work? What would that be worth? And she goes, $20. And I said, okay. And I always, because I work a business brain, I suppose, and I want to create a learning experience. And I said to Pixel, I said, well, how about you ask me what I would be willing to pay you to do a bit of Bitcoin artwork? So she turned around and she said, okay, how much would you pay me? And I said, I would pay you $100. And she goes, wow. She was a bit surprised. And I said, well, for me, it's going to be priceless. Because you do it, to me, it's priceless. So I'm willing to give you $100 to commission a piece of artwork. She goes, okay, no problems. So we had day one, did that, no worries. Day two. So day two, she started doing some drawing and everything else. And because what I wanted to do was to know with what Pixel hears in the environment and what she knows from us, then what's going to come out in the artwork. So she created this piece of artwork, which you guys have seen, and it totally blew me away that she could create something that meant so much that was in her head. She knew about, the Bush Bash logo, Bitcoin. She had an iPhone in the drawing, and she created these. I'm looking at it now. That it's inflation and government debt and all that's taken our money from us, where Bitcoin gives us hope for the future.
And did you get an absolute steal for your $100?
Well, I did, because look, $100 is depreciating all the time. So
did you give her in sats or did you pay her in dollars?
No. So what we've done is, this is how it's all grown. Is so every Bush Bash we go to, I commission a piece of artwork for her. So now what the deal is, she did one at Beechworth, and it was the first one. So it costs $100 in fiat dollars in money, and it costs $100 worth of satoshis in her digital wallet.
Awesome. Can we? Just trying to think how we can incorporate, if you're happy to share, if she's happy to share it. Can we incorporate that in some way, just so people can see it? Like we're talking about this, or
absolutely.
Or is there somewhere people can go to see it?
I can send it to you if you like.
Okay, we'll work out. Okay, if you're happy to do that, we'll share.
Well, we could do, because every pod, when 2Bit shares it, there's the audio file. Maybe we could have her artwork behind the audio file.
We could do that.
Yeah.
We could do that. If she's comfortable with that.
It's a good idea.
It's awesome. It's incredible to watch or to see just how much somebody has just picked up by osmosis by being in the room, right?
Yep.
Clearly listening, clearly aware. It just shows you when you parent yourself. It's like, one, it's be more aware of how you're behaving yourself, because making rules that are totally incongruent with the way that you're behaving is pointless, because you just look like a hypocrite. So, but the same thing goes for the positive side. If you're in the room for the positive conversations too, you're hearing that as well. No, I think it's awesome.
But you also
go on.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, please.
You're also you're having adult conversations. So, especially at the Bush Bash, or even a meetup group, you're having adult conversations, but we should be including. The only way our kids are going to learn is if we include them in what we're doing, and hearing those adult conversations, like whether it's at Beechworth or Murrah or any of those, just being in the room, it's fantastic content for them, and that's how they'll learn, by being around like-minded people and learning about the economy and money and hardship, humanitarian things, and it's really what life is when you think about it. So why not share that life with them? Because at the end of the day, as parents, we don't want them to make the same mistakes that we've made. We want, well, in my world, we want them to learn, to understand what's really going on. And if we can teach them those things, then that prepares them better for the future. I think, it was great when you see other kids there. There should be more kids and it's child friendly anyhow. So why not? If you're going to have a meeting with your banker or whoever it is, take your kids with you, share in that, whatever you do in life, because, we want them to learn and be part of it. So why not, include them in that?
We've talked about taking our whole families to
I'm keen out. But I don't want to drag them. Do you know what I mean? I want them to come.
Yeah,
but without that kind of thing. Like
yeah.
I don't want. But
but that's.
Sorry, please.
I think that's just an excuse. Like we said to Pixel, it's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
But we also frame it in a way that we'll always be fair, with you if you're fair with us. And I think, though, that as parents, we're responsible for our children whilst they're with us. So sometimes you've got to say, suck it up.
Yeah.
I mean, Pixel's been fantastic, mind you. But, you might have to have a trade-off. You can have that toy, or you can have that drawing book or whatever. We just want you in the room. But, and then take them to a fun park the next day, or whatever it is, because just know that if they're in that environment, they're going to take little bits and pieces in there. If they're not in the environment, they might not understand it. There might be one thing they learn, but it will be the thing that just hearing that conversation with somebody else, or, I mean, I don't know, but you've experienced what a bush bash is like, and it's fantastic. So why not try to share it with your kids as well too, or any family that's listening to this? Take them to a meetup. It's just they're the things that they need to learn, to make them more prepared for their future in that future, if that makes sense.
Agreed. You're totally right. I had another quick. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was they've got a wonderful bullshit filter too. Like, and this is I'll give you a quick story. They'll tell you it harshly. You're looking really fat today, Dad, or something like whatever. Right, straight to your face. It's great. But I and this is a bit patronizing saying kid, but I used to do a public procurement job, and I remember being in that job, and I took a young. She was a history student, right? So she was maybe 18, 19, so not a kid, but like young. And I took her in. She was just taking notes for me. She came out of that meeting and saying, "Oh, that was kind of a bit more interesting than I thought it was going to be." And she said, "But I don't understand why you did this, this, and this. 3 things, right?" And she picked the 3 biggest problems in my department in about a 25-minute space of time, right? And it was the most embarrassing thing ever to know that we couldn't address these things when somebody could see them so obviously in such a short period of time. So yeah, also to pick holes in your arguments as well. It's I've
got an example as well. So because my wife was away for 2 months in Spain, So I'm single parenting at the moment, and I asked my daughter, almost doxer,
Yeah.
my daughter, I think 2 nights ago, I said, "So how am I going as a single dad?" And she goes, "Yeah," and she goes, "Pretty good." I'm like,
Well, that's pretty good.
"Yeah," I'm
That's...
like, "Pretty good. What do you mean pretty good?" She's like, "Well, it's not mum level," and I'm like,
That's right.
"Yeah," and then I go, "What's mum level?" And she goes, "God level."
Oh, really?
Yeah, like fucking hell, brutal.
Yeah.
But fair enough. I miss my wife.
Well, you are asked the question. You knew what the answer you were going to get.
Yeah, I did. I really did.
So where are we going? I guess maybe the first question is: are you managing to incorporate this into the Bitcoin world into your business at all? Are you even trying, or where do you see it going? In the next year or two, maybe, and then further out.
As in, using having Bitcoin in the business, as in, or
accepting payments in Bitcoin, or like.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, sorry, that was it. So we've looked at it. I wanted to do this 2 years ago, to start accepting payments. The problem with in this country, in Australia, is that when you're in business, the thing that you want is you want to create a great customer experience, and if you work on and that's what we do. We create a great customer experience in everything that we do. So we need to incorporate Bitcoin payments, absolutely. But if it can't be a great customer experience, then that's detrimental to the business. And until we get a system like Strike or something like that in this country, we need to be able to have one terminal that will basically take the Bitcoin payments, and also Visa, MasterCard, and everything else. And it needs to be seamless and streamless, and it needs to be simple and easy for all your staff to use. No hiccups, no nothing.
Shout out Jack Dorsey, Square, Jack Dorsey.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we can't use it, and I've had conversations with a couple of people in our community, and it's just not here yet. If we were a small business and it was Corey and myself there all the time at the front counter and doing all that, yeah, we could do that. But if we've got staff that are moving around a bit and everything like that, you don't have the volumes, and it's only once in a blue moon, and it needs to be, as I said, it needs to create that great customer experience. And if it can't do that, it's no point going there. But eventually, yes, absolutely. But we've got to wait until we've got the technology that's going to allow us to do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I think it's frustrating, and I mean, Bitcoin Alive was a big event. I don't know if people have quite realized how big event that was. I think it's given Australian Bitcoiners a bit of confidence to stand up and say, "Hang on a second, that was pretty good." And look at these people that are in the room talking. And I think people are there's some confidence going to come from that. There's going to things come out. But that said, we are probably still a little bit behind the curve, and for some things, and certainly against the US. But it's just so interesting to see. I said to you, I think before we came on, I don't really want to come up, but anyway, a gentleman contacted us the other day, and just in terms of just told me something that he wants to come on the pod, talk about it. We're going to talk about it in a few weeks, and it's just totally left field. And I had no idea he existed. I had no idea what he was doing. And I'm just like, wow, I never thought that, a year ago, if you'd have told me I'd be having this conversation with this person about this in the other part of the world, that would even have been a thing. And there's just so many things going off in so many different directions that you're not aware of, that are going to be hugely beneficial for all of us.
Is that the sex shop guy?
The sex shop guy.
Green dildo.
Look, I think that the thing is that we're so early in this, but we're also so far behind, because as much as so many people are doing it tough in this country right now, we don't experience the pain that third world countries experience and other parts in the world. They get this, and will gravitate to anything that's going to help them get into a better position in life. Where in this country, most people aren't in that situation like third world countries are and everything like that. So I think it's going to take a lot longer for people to realize everyone needs Bitcoin. But I also think too, look, technology is moving so fast. There's so much, so many people working on better technology, in this space. And it could come to us a lot quicker than what we think, technical wise. But I think people wise, though, unfortunately, I think it's going to take a lot more to move that needle, especially in countries like Australia and other well-off countries in the world. Will be a lot longer to adopt it.
So what excites you just now then? Like, what projects are you seeing happening that are particularly of interest to you?
Look, I just love the space. I mean, Bitcoin gives you hope. Hope that if the current system falls over, that there's another system that we can move to. I think what Bitcoin and the current technologies that are coming out in this space, how it can create humanity for a lot of people. I think in the Bitcoin mining space, of how it can change countries throughout Africa and supply power to villages, to enforcing the grid and supporting the grid. I think that's going to make big inroads to this country in the future as well too. So there's a lot of hope to make better lives and better livelihoods, within that whole Bitcoin space, and even just people getting a better understanding of what money is and how it works and everything else that goes with it. It's just so exciting. And it's great being around, like-minded people. I think it's great for more people to get to learn about bush bashes and even a local meetup group. It's good. There's a lot of hope around, instead of the other side of the coin is a lot of, I suppose, despair and people doing life tough and struggling without hope.
It is tough when you can't see, when tomorrow looks bleak and bleaker than today. That's a really difficult mindset to be in. But I think most of the Bitcoiners that go along to a meetup, even the ones that are just lurking on Twitter or whatever they're doing, Nostr, and then the ones that then go along to a meetup, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded by these people that are kind of friendly, they're positive, they're looking forward to tomorrow.
They have hope.
And it's infectious, right? It's infectious,
big time.
and you just want to be around it more.
Yeah, but I also think too, you're right. But I think that there are people also that want to make a difference to the world. And to me, that's what we need, what you guys are doing, and what so many other people in this space are doing. It really comes down to they want to make a difference, not only to their lives and their family's life. It's communities and everything else that they want to, help and support.
Definitely.
Excellent.
It's a pretty positive way to sign off, I reckon.
That's it, mate. Thank you, Paul. That was great.
Really was. It really was.
Sound like you're choking up.
Sorry, voice is gone. If you don't mind sending us the image through, we will get that on the artwork as of the front.
Yeah, with Pixel's approval. If
she's okay with it, we'll do that. What else do we need? Do you want to send people off to find you anywhere else, or are you happy just being a pleb in the space?
Oh, look, I'm happy to be a pleb in the space. I mean, you know what my Twitter handle is, and that's fine.
Awesome. We will we'll put that down below, and mate, I look forward to catching up with you at the next Bush Bash.
Absolutely.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
See you, mate.